Let's jump right in. Today we are saying bye-bye to the buyer's journey. I was having this conversation even just last night with a few people and got some pretty big reactions to this idea, so I'm very excited to dive into this with you all today. Why are we saying bye-bye to the buyer's journey? Well, as I think a lot of you probably know, the idea of a very nice, neat, linear journey that people go through from awareness to consideration to decision, 1, 2, 3, is a little bit of an idea of the past. I love this illustration from Gartner that shows the complexity of the actual buyer's journey. And for those of us who've been on the purchasing side, we've definitely seen a lot of these elements before. And the orange blocks are maybe what the vendor thinks is happening, nice, neat journey through the process, but the behind the scenes is where the real activities are going on. And there's things on there like the CEO turned over, or legal suddenly flagged something, or budget cuts. And that's the reality of the buyer's journey. All kinds of unexpected things happening, people going in and out of the journey in whatever direction they choose. And so mapping our content strategies to a linear buyer's journey starts to become really limited. I also like to, and I'm going to try for the rest of my presentation, to strip out the term buyer. I don't love the term buyer, especially from a content marketing perspective, because aren't we all just humans who like to buy things? So we want to bring that human element back into our content planning as well. When we do try to map our content strategy to a strictly linear buyer's journey, we often end up with something that I like to call funnel vision. And the strategy becomes so hyper-focused on this purchasing journey that we want them to go through that it can get really focused on the short term and miss the pre-funnel, the post-funnel, the more expansive view of the customer journey, and ultimately miss out on the opportunities to build long-term audiences who are engaged with us, even if they're not in the purchasing process yet. Some of those red flags that you might be falling into that funnel vision mode are things like you're not actually seeing a growing audience of fans who are engaging with your brand, even if they're not ready to purchase. Maybe the content ends up being overly driven by products and services instead of being really driven by the persona and their interests. The reporting, if it's especially focused in on lead generation, which is important, but there's not a high value put on engagement, long-term engagement, that's a symptom of some funnel vision. And lastly, if it feels, as I think probably many of us have felt at some point or other, like the content team is just taking orders from the sales team, we could be stuck in funnel vision mode. And maybe you recognize the problems with that and you say, yep, I get it. I'm not mapping my content strategy to a linear buyer's journey, but I don't know what to use instead. That was how I felt in my past. There wasn't a good framework I could come across that I wanted to use instead. And so then you can end up with random acts of content, which I'm sure a lot of us have seen before too. You've got those one-hit wonders. Maybe some things are performing well, some aren't, but there's no long-term, consistent, scalable, repeatable strategy that's aligned to the company's strategic goals. There's a few red flags that are indicators that you could be in random acts of content mode here too. Maybe everybody isn't actually on the same page about what the content strategy is. People internally couldn't articulate what the content strategy is. Maybe the strategy isn't scaling as new products are added, new personas, new verticals, and that's a symptom that random acts of content is the driving force in the content planning. Inconsistency in key messaging. Can people even articulate what the brand wants to talk about? And then lastly, reporting again. Maybe an over-reliance on vanity metrics because it's too difficult to report on the actual long-term impact of the content strategy. These are some of the challenges, and I feel that content marketers deserve better. I think content marketers need a roadmap for building an audience-centric strategy that's scalable, it's consistent, it's connected to the strategy of the entire company, and it's repeatable. And that's what we're going to go through today.